Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, I'm making a 2-drawer project. You can see we have one drawer at the bottom, which opens like so. And the second drawer, if we slide open the lid, we have a divided section here, but in the lid, we also have a hidden drawer like so. Now, this is based on a wooden jewellery box which I saw on Pinterest. This is clearly made out of cardstock, so you will need to be thoughtful as to what goes in the box and just be prepared that it is going to sag a little and it will bow a little because it is cardstock at the end of the day. This is the only project I've made of this, so there are some issues which I come across along the way. For instance, initially I didn't have this bar in and realised once I'd put the project together that I did need the bar, and so I cover this at the end. Whilst the project may look complicated, I have broken it down into chunks. So we'll make the drawer base, this element, then we will make the top element, and then we will make the lid and this element, and then we will make the drawer. This portion here is entirely optional. You could just make the top section similar to a sliding box, and I have a couple of those on my channel. So let's get into it and put the project together. We're going to start with the base drawer section, and the first thing we'll make is the outer that the drawer is going to slide into. You'll have two pieces which are 4.5 inches by either the width of A4 or the width of US letter, so 8.5 or 8.25 inches. And all this means is if you use A4, you'll have a slightly smaller glue tab at the end. Along the long side, score at 6 inches and 8 inches. And on the short side, score at 1/2 inch. So you'll do that twice. And then you'll have a piece for the back of the drawer outer, and that is 6 inches by 2 inches. To take the two side elements, we're going to fold and burnish along all of the score lines. And then on each piece, we're going to cut away the intersecting square or rectangle at the bottom, cut up the 1/2 inch score line to separate this long 1/2 inch section, and then take a wedge from the ends of each of these glue tabs. So do that on both pieces. I've got them folded over. These are the fronts, so the glue tabs are on the left hand side. I'm going to join the piece together. So we'll run some glue down here, sit this on top. Get your base score lines lined up because you can always trim the top if you need to. I'm going to flip the piece over, fold over this end section that has the glue tab on it, add glue, and we're going to join up the piece. Add glue onto the base or the back glue tabs. Stick your back panel into place. Get everything squared off, and then you can flip that over and go in and burnish down from the top. Whilst that's drying, we'll make the drawer element. So for the drawer, I have a base which is 1/16 of an inch under 6 inches by 1/16 of an inch under 4 inches. For the sides of the drawer, you'll need two pieces which are 10 3/8 of an inch by 2.5 inches. Along the short side, score at 1/2 inch. Along the long side, make a pencil mark at 1/16 of an inch under 6 inches on the cardstock, and then shift the cardstock along so that the pencil mark is in a track. So my pencil mark is moved along to the 6 inch mark, and then I've scored, and you can see I've got this gap at this end here. rotate the cardstock 180 degrees and score at 1/2 inch. You do that twice. Fold and burnish along your score lines. Now I'm going to fold the piece like this. So just fold it over, fold in the end glue tab, take your carcass, and we want to check that the piece fits in. So that's going to fit in there, and it's going to fit in long ways and along the side. So we know that these pieces of cardstock are the right length, because if you needed to, you could trim some off the end of that end, and if you needed to, you could re-score just slightly inside of this score line if this piece was going to be too big. On each of the side strips, we're going to cut away the intersecting square on the bottom edge like so. Split the long glue tab by cutting up the vertical to the 1/2 inch horizontal, and then take a wedge from the ends of each of these glue tabs. So do that on both pieces, and then as we did with the outer section, we're going to join up the strips and complete the rectangle, and then we're going to adhere it to the base of the drawer. And you should find that your drawer fits in the carcass nice and snugly like so. So we'll leave that one to dry. Next we're going to make the top section. You'll need one piece which is 4 inches by 3 inches, and along the short side score at 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch and 4 inches. At 1/4 inch, score down to the 3rd score line, like so, and repeat at 3 3/4 down to the 3rd score line. So your piece will look like this. Ignore that score line going across there, but your piece is going to look like this. Put that to one side, and then for the top element, you'll need a piece which is 10 inches by 6.5 inches. Along the 10-inch side, score at 1/4, 1/2, 3/4 and 1, 3, 7, 9, 9 1/4, 9 1/2 and 9 3/4. And on the short side, score at 1/2. Once you've put your 1/2 inch tab in the top and the bottom sections, we want to narrow the glue tab. So I'm going to score at 1/4 inch down to the score line, like so. So that's the top section. And then I'm going to flip it over and do the same at the other end. Score at 1/4 inch down to the score line. So you can see that the top and the bottom sections have got these additional score lines, which is just going to help us when we do our cutting. So the first thing to do is we want to cut a hair's width off of each end of the piece. We're going to be creating tubes at either end, and it's just going to help the base of the tube slot into the next section. This much from either end. So we'll start with our smallest piece. We're going to cut down the score line within the 3 top sections like so. And then we're going to cut diagonally from the end of the last score line across to that cut line. So we're shaping the section like so. So I'm going to cut down the 3 score lines and then across like so. That's the end section of the top element of the box. Fold and burnish along all of the score lines, and take your time because obviously they are only 1/4 of an inch sections. And now we're going to add glue to this end section here, and I'm going to fold this around so that it adheres onto this edge here. So you can see that's going to come around, and we're going to create this tube element. I'm going to lay the edge, the cut edge, up with the score line like so, and then push this down so I can get that adhered. Burnish, just push it down gently so that that adheres into place. And then when I pop that top down, you can see I've got this tube element on the inside. So we'll set that aside to dry. We'll now work on the larger piece. Fold and burnish along all of the score lines. So have the piece in this orientation, and we're going to start by cutting up the score lines either side of this central panel here, like so, and then take a wedge. Fold your piece so the tab we've cut is on the right hand side. We're going to cut down the inner score line through the 4 1/4 of an inch sections, like so. Okay, rotate and remove that, like so. And then we're going to cut along the 1/4 of an inch score line. So we've shortened our glue tab. Take a wedge from the end. We're going to rotate and do the same at this other end. Take your smaller piece, and we want to make sure that everything's going to fit. So I'll have it in this orientation. This is going to be the base of the top section. So this glue tab is going to stick on the bottom section like so, and this will sit with the lip going in. These pieces are then going to fold up, and you should find you've now cut your glue tabs small enough so that they can fit in between the edge of the cardstock and this piece here. So just hold them, and if you need to, just shape them a little bit more if necessary. You might just need to shape the top and to make that a little bit sharper, but you should find that nothing is hitting. The first thing we're going to do is create our tubes in a similar vein to how we did on this one. I'm going to use my quick grab glue. I'm just going to shape the ends of those bottom sections. But apologies for these things which I do as I go along. I'm sure you can appreciate this is a meaty project, and therefore this is the only one that I've made. Which is why sometimes, as you may see glue, because I did a piece and then thought, oh, I know I need to do that first. It's a learning curve. So we're now going to fold over the top layer, fold over the second one, fold over the third one, and we're going to create our tube. So our tube looks like this. So that's our tube. That there is the end that we just shaped. So let that adhere. And again, if you wanted, you could push this down flat, burnish it down, and then pull the tube back up. So do the same for this one. Add glue. So you want to let that dry completely. Okay, once you're sure that your ledges are dry, you want to create the shelf units for the lid to slide on. I've got 4 strips of cardstock. They're 1/4 of an inch deep, and I've just added 2 together, and they're 5 7/8 of an inch long. I'm going to start with 2, see how I get on, and then if I need to add more, I will. At the end of the day, they're going to sit under this ledge, and this ledge gives me 1/4 of an inch. So I could have shells which were 1/4 of an inch thick if that's what I needed. I want to make sure that my strips are going to sit in the right place, but I don't want to be making measurements. You can make measurements if you want, but my ruler is about 1/16 of an inch thick. And I know that my lid, even with its pattern paper on it, is not going to be 1/16 of an inch thick. If you are planning to do lots and lots of layers on your lid, then obviously it will affect the thickness and you're going to need to leave a bigger gap. But for my purposes, I'm going to sit the ruler right up against the inside edge of the tube like so. So that's going to sit there. I'm then going to add my glue onto my strip and sit my strip up against the ruler. So when I move the ruler out of the way, I've got a gap between the top of the strip and the bottom of the ledge. You might be able to just, if I put it that way, you can see the gap. So that's more than enough for my lid to sit on. I'm going to do the same on the other side. The final element is to stick this piece into place, and this is going to sit on the back edge like so, and then the 2 cut edges are going to come over and secure at the end like so. So we'll start by adding glue onto all of the glue tabs. I'm going to add a tiny dot of glue onto the corner there and onto there. And then I'm going to sit this with the tube going into the inside on all of the glue tabs and up on the top like so. So once that's in, push that up against the base glue tabs. I can go in and just push all of that down and get everything stuck into place. So that is the top section of our box. The next thing to do is to add glue to the underside of this section and to adhere it to the top of the drawer carcass. I'm going to add glue to the top of this. Drawer opening is at the front. My box, I've got my open end on the right hand side, and I'm going to sit that on top. You should find that one sits on top of the other, and then I'm going to flip it over, burnish it down. Just make sure everything stays nice and square. And then I'm going to set that aside to dry, and obviously using construction glue, that's going to add a lot of strength to that. We're now going to make the lid section, and for this you'll need one piece which is 7 inches by 4 inches.
Along the long side, score at 1/2 and 6 1/4.
Rotate, and within one of the 1/2 inch sections, mark down to the score line at 1/4 of an inch and 3 3/4 of an inch. Fold and burnish along the 1/2 inch score lines. From the end that doesn't have the 2 additional score lines within it, we're just going to shape that to create a glue tab. And then at the other end, we want to burnish this so that it's a valley fold. It's going to create a sort of a lip to help us get the lid open. We want to cut down the 1/4 of an inch score lines like so, and then we're going to remove that section. Now we might need to make these slightly bigger, so we're going to test fit first. So take your box and you want to make sure that your lid can slide in on the shelf and that this section is narrow enough so that it fits through the gap in between. So if I push that in, I can see my lid is fitting, and I'm just going to, you can see that slightly catching and it's making an unpleasant noise. So I'm going to take a 1/16 of an inch off of either end. Check that that slides in, which that does quite nicely. So I'm quite happy with that. Next, you'll need a piece which is 4 inches by 2 inches, and you want to lightly mark along the short side at 1 3/4 of an inch. We're now going to add glue to this glue tab here, and we're going to line it up with the 1/4 of an inch pencil line that we've just made on this piece. So this is going to give us another support to get the drawer open. So that is going to sit on the lid like so. So you want to let that dry completely. The next piece is for the small drawer support, and this is 3 3/4 by 4 5/8, and along the 4 5/8 inch side it's scored at 1/2 inch, 2 1/2, rotate 180 degrees and score at 1/2 inch. Fold and burnish. Take a wedge from the ends of each of the glue tabs. So the 1 5/8 of an inch is the height of the piece, and the drawer is 2 inches wide. So we're going to take our lid piece, and it's going to be up like this. So this is sitting in the top of the box. This is going to come on the outside of the box. This piece is going to sit in like so. So there will be roughly 1/8 of an inch of a gap at either end. Obviously that's to allow for the shelves. So if you've got wider shelves, you'll need to make this piece narrower. Otherwise it's not going to slide in. But this is going to sit in like so. So I'm going to add glue to both pieces at the same time. Remember that my 2 inch piece is the width of the drawer. So I'm going to stick that in against the bottom. So I want it on the bottom edge of this side piece. Try and get roughly in the middle like that. And as always, I'm making one of these, so I'm doing it as I go along. So if you look at that and think, oh, there's a much easier way of doing that, then please go ahead. And then I'm going to stick this into place like so. Let's bring this in. So the idea is the lid will slot in, comes across, and then this bottom drawer is hidden and is on the inside like so. And put that side, pushes in, and we've got this little lip at the top. So you can see how this starts to come together. So the last things to do are to make the drawer to go in the inside, and also I'm going to put a divider into this section here. For the last drawer, I have a piece which is 1/16 under 6 3/4 times 1/16 under 5 inches. And on all 4 sides, I'm going to score at 1 1/2 inches. Fold and burnish. We'll double check that it fits into our carcass. So that's that way up. So let's put up the sides to start with, make sure that fits in, which it does. So that is going to fit in there nicely. And then I'm just going to turn it up this way, put it back in and just move it until I can see the ends, and just make sure that the score lines are going to be within the inside, which you can see that is. So I know that that's going to fit in lengthways and widthways and height. It's always worth checking these things. It takes a couple of seconds, but it means that we're not cutting something which ultimately isn't going to fit. So we'll have the piece in a landscape orientation, and we'll bring the glue tabs around into the longer section so we don't have to then worry about cutting them down. So we'll cut up this first score line, up the second score line, rotate, cut the score line opposite and the score line opposite, and then we will take a slight wedge from the ends of these corner glue tabs. We're making a simple tray, so we'll add glue onto the corner glue tabs, bring that around and get a nice right angle on each of the corners. We'll take our piece and just double check that this fits in, which it does. The next element, I'm going to put a divider into the centre section. So I'm going to just sit my box on the outside. So my divider is going to come somewhere around here. And that gives us the maximum amount of space in this section here. Now the divider can only go up to the height of where the shelves start. So let's measure those. So the divider height can't be any more than 1 3/8 of an inch. The divider is 3 3/4 times 5. Along the 5-inch side, score at half and 4 1/2. On the 3 3/4-inch side, score at half, 1 7/8. Rotate 180 degrees and score at half. Fold and burnish. I'm going to remove the 4 intersecting corners. Cut up the score lines within the 1/2-inch glue tab at the ends. And then we're going to shape all of these glue tabs. So this is effectively going to sit inside like so. So decide whether you want to add these two central pieces together. That's an option. I'm going to sit my lid on the top like so, so it's just resting, and just mark with a pencil just slightly to the left of where the end of this box is going to sit. So I can rub that out afterwards. I'm going to add glue onto the glue tabs, and I can just use that pencil line as a guide as to where my divider can sit in the box. So let's get that all pushed down, get that all pushed together. And what this also does is the divider also helps to bring this end of the box together. So make sure it's sitting upright and square. And then before it gets completely adhered, I'm going to slot the lid in right the way along. I can just make sure that the divider's in the right place, which that is. So that divider's not affecting that piece going into the box at all. So I think what I am going to do is I'm going to cut another 4 strips of cardstock and just add a little bit more depth to the shelf ledges, and then I will get the decoration done. I have now added all the various patterned paper onto the end, and I've gone for a very primary block colour look for this one. And I just want to show, obviously this is how this piece pulls out, and we've got our pull-out drawer at this end. If you're finding that your piece is spreading and your lid is falling out off of the shelf ledges that we've made, and you don't want to put any more ledges on, you can add an additional support which will keep this side of the box retained and add an extra bar in here. And I'll just go through how I've put this together. So this is a piece of cardstock which is 4.5 inches long, and it's 1.25 inches wide. Along the short side I've scored at every 1/4 inch, and then on the end I've cut a slither off as we did previously. Along the long side I've scored at 1/4 inch from top to bottom. I've then rotated it, and then I've scored at 1/2 inch just down to the 3rd score line. The construction is much the same as this. We've just got these 2 extra glue tabs at the end, and I've then cut away from the bottom of the 3rd score line across. So my thought process is I'm going to add this together as a tube, the same as we did the tubes on the top. Before we add any of our glue, you just want to check that these tabs are going to fit inside the tube, because you might need to shape them slightly. So they are going to fit in like so. So I just need to cut a little bit off of this one. So I'm just going to slim that down slightly. So I'm going to add glue onto the 2 tabs and add glue to the top here, and I'm going to sit that support in, and then that's just going to create an extra brace, as it were, so that this end of the box stays as it should, and that should hopefully stop your lid from falling out of your shelves. Alternatively, you might find you just still need to add some extra shelves in. Now, by adding the bar on, what that obviously does is that does make this piece here now the same height, but we can still use this element here to get the lid in and out. But obviously you might not feel that that bar is absolutely necessary. I'll just show the different sides on screen and the measurements of the pattern paper. It is a meaty project, I understand that, but hopefully I've been able to break it down into the various elements to make it as easy as possible. And of course, you don't need to add things like this additional drawer. Having said that, I have enjoyed putting the project together and overcoming the little issues that I found along the way. And overall, I'm happy with how this particular project has come out. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.